Alright, so IndigAthon was in November, and I made an effort to read more books by Indigenous authors. Obviously, I started with Stephen Graham Jones, just because I really enjoyed The Only Good Indians, written by him when I read it last year. If you're interested in that one, it's extremely well written, mind-warping, gory story with really good characters, and the horror elements in it was really well done. The deer, woman, lady thing, it, them, was incredible, very terrifying, and just a unique concept that I haven't heard before in books, so love that. My only complaints with The Only Good Indians was it was like a character study and a horror book combined into one, and I didn't get enough of either. I either wanted more explanation, more diving into the supernatural horror elements, or more focus on the characters, learn more about their personalities, hopes, dreams, thoughts. Just, I needed one more of the other, and it just, like, I didn't have enough of either to satisfy me. The ending, though, was intense. The entire book itself seemed really slow-paced, kind of meandering, not my cup of tea, but then the ending was so fantastic. A lot of basketball with a chase scene, and it was great. I loved that ending. So I really wanted to read more from this author. I'm most excited for his short story work, but unfortunately my library didn't have that in stock, so I was able to pick up his most recent one, My Heart's a Chainsaw, and then had to DNF it at 20%, unfortunately. Basically, this is 100% a me thing. I have this issue where if you make a pop culture reference in a book, it has to be done in a very specific way or it completely draws me out of the story. Just say you want to compare someone to Ripley, and you just use Ripley's name, and that's great. The reader either gets it or they don't, and moving on. But if you say, God, you're just like Ripley from Alien, it's the drawing reference explaining what movie franchise it's from that 100% drags me out of the story every single time. Another author who does this is Paul Tremblay. All the time. He'll make the reference and then explain what the reference is from. And it just pulls me right out. My Heart's a Chainsaw does this so many times. Some of the references are incorporated nicely, but a lot just really drew me out of the story, and it is a large, large, large chunk of the book. It really is a love letter to horror movies and slashers. The writing didn't work for me. I also was told that the pacing and actual plot of the story is really slow and nothing really happens till really at the end, and I just couldn't read that book to get to that point. So I then picked up The Last Final Girl, and also had to DNF that one, closer to like 80%, I think. I will always, always appreciate an author who takes a risk. I believe this was his first book, and it's written like a transcript of a horror movie. The script format was unique. I'd never read something like that before. I liked it initially, starting off. The beginning was strong, but then it kind of felt more like a gimmick. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the plot. I had to stop. I'll try picking it up again later just because I'm so close to finishing it, but just it wasn't for me. Moving on to a book that's been on my TBR for so long. Well, not so long. Still a recent-ish release. But I've been meaning to read it forever, and this finally gave me an excuse to Split Tooth. At first, I wasn't sure how to rate this. I went in knowing nothing. Literally nothing. So I was really, really shocked and taken back by the amount of child abuse, sexual assault, trauma, and a lot of difficult topics that were discussed in this book. It's a mixture of different genres as well. There's poetry, which I do not enjoy poetry. Myth retellings, maybe some like historical realism, just some weird speculative fiction, a little bit memoir, autobiographies. It's just a combination of so many different genres, and I was overwhelmed. There was also throat singing between chapters in the audiobook, and it was a lot. Again, I originally wasn't even going to rate it because I felt like I was not the target audience. I didn't want to bring the rating down. Not a spoiler, but I ended up loving this book. There is so much discussion on generational trauma, indigenous cultures and residential schools, and then this plot with the Northern Lights, which is so weird, and there's definitely myths and retellings that must incorporate this that I don't know it, so I'm missing that context of it. But by the end, I felt this character's like dissociation in her life and all the trauma she's been through. And oh my god, by the ending, this is probably a 5-star book. I'm only going to give it a 4 just because my enjoyment with poetry is mixed. But oh, I recommend this book so highly. Just by the end, it made everything worth it. I'm so happy I read this book. And then I popped over to the IndigAthon Instagram page, and I got one more recommendation for a book I've never heard of called Winter Camels. And it became one of my probably favorite books of the year and made it onto a list of favorite books just in general. I am a very simple reader. You give me a parent-child dynamic where the adult has taken responsibility for this child and wants to take care of them and protect them. Bonus points if they're either not related or tangentially related. In this case, it's an uncle taking care of his nephew after the mother died, who was the adult's sister. Yeah, no, I'm hooked. If it's even halfway competently written, if that kind of situation is involved, I'm in. I love this so much. It's about Virgil Wounded Horse is the main character's name. And he is taking care of his nephew, but he's also kind of like an enforcer type person, hired thug who gets vengeance for people who have been wronged. He is fantastic, and he's trying to figure out who is bringing heroin onto the reservation. There is so much about just residential life and culture and the struggles that they have, but just a lot of family dynamics, and it is a very slow story till right at the end when you get a lot of action. I loved it. This was a new favorite. I can't stress it enough. I loved these characters, all of the characters. There were so many side characters. I loved how they were incorporated into the story. It was great. It was slow and predictable, but it was great. Then I spent a good chunk of November reading the Goodreads Choice Awards for the mystery thriller genre. But I was trying to get in one more book, I believe it's called Son of a Trickster, and I want to read that for no other reason than the cover is pretty, and I love the concept of the trickster. So I will get to it eventually, because why only read, obviously, during a readathon and digathon when you should be reading Indigenous authors all throughout the year. So unfortunately, I've had to move that to either December, January, see where I can squeeze it in. I am looking forward to reading it. The cover is beautiful. Let me know what Indigenous authors you think I should check out, especially if they're a mystery, thriller, horror author. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to Stephen Graham Jones. I believe I'll really like his short stories. And another one is it Empire of Wild? I've heard good things about that one. I'm looking forward to reading. Yeah, that's all I got. See ya.